attention, but you're actually spreading the word.
That's right.
You know?
You are, that's right. Instant communication.
Thanks, baby. See, I wouldn't have had to ask for a capo if I remember to grab that.
Well, the other thing is,
I'm glad he let me play that J45.
That's the one we bought him.
You bought that for him?
Not just me, but a lot of us went together and bought that. He had one that was not a very good one. It had a lot of problems, and Kenny Blunt reset the neck in it 2 or 3 times, and it just never was quite, it never intonated out very well.
Uh-huh.
So he finally told Frank he couldn't fix it anymore, and so Frank asked him to find him a decent guitar. So he found him a pretty decent guitar. It wasn't a Gibson, but it was a decent one in Frank's budget at the time.
Yeah.
So a bunch of us, Ron Lischauer, there's a bunch of us involved, probably 30 or 40 of us involved, with all threw money in a pot, and Barry ordered him that Gibson guitar.
That's a nice one.
So I was thinking at that time I got to play it. Since I owned a little piece of it, at least one string.
Well, these little gnats are driving me natty.
yeah.
Can you put this back there?
The
While I get this thing that's biting me.
Not me.
This one's a critter. So you are a bear. A roe bear.
Uh-huh.
There's some water in that jug there.
Oh, yeah. Gee. Water out of the jug.
Yeah, thank you. Something's chewing on me over there. Where was? We got to go to the funny Kate thing. Kate funny song. Where's time? 4.
4, nice then.
We got time.
All right, flat pick guitar.
3 o'clock?
Yeah.
Might have to leave it a little. We might have to leave it a little early.
Is that the camera itself, or does it transmit to a base station?
I will not be
The
a
camera itself, it records, it's completely self-contained, does 360 degrees,
I've seen those.
so everything is completely in view, and the
Hi, Mom.
user can decide what viewpoint they want. So when they're watching it, they can turn and pick to watch you or me or Jim or whoever the process.
All right, flat pick guitar. So, what is flat pick guitar to you?
Going fast up and down the strings with the pick.
Okay, all right,
One at a time.
one at a time. Okay,
Fluid fast picking like bluegrass style. where you
okay,
can-
okay, okay.
Using a pick.
How about you?
Flat pick. I don't know. Flat pick is
Ooh,
flat pick.
Okay. And
Me too.
Parker,
Is it out of shape?
you're here to find out, right?
Oh.
do you have
Okay.
a tuner on it?
Matt?
No, it doesn't.
I've got one somewhere.
I would just say
You might have to flick it a couple times to make it.
and stuff that's built in.
Okay.
You know,
All right, flat pick guitar to me is taking this little device right here called a flector or pick and using it to get as much music out of the guitar as you can, as opposed to playing with fingers and so on. So you get a little more volume out of the guitar, you can get a little more control sometimes using a flat pick, and there's amazing things to be done with that. A lot of flat pick workshops that I have gone to have spent, the leaders have spent time trying to teach a particular song. That song may be done in their style or something like that. I don't do that. What I want to do today, what I'm going to suggest is that we explore what are the mechanics, what does it take to get the best control of this pick. And then, once you have learned how to develop control, then what can we do with it by adding the left hand? the secret to good guitar playing, I don't care what style it is, and I think Frank and Cindy would agree with me, the secret is the right hand. The right hand is what's controlling the timing of the song. Okay? And the left hand is simply making the chords or fretting a scale, but how it does that is controlled, and where those notes go is controlled by the right hand. It's the same is true when you're fiddling. I'm a fiddler, and for years I was forced to work on the right hand, the bow, before I ever learned a song. My nephew's a wonderful fiddler now with me. For almost 3 months, I wouldn't even show him a scale on the fiddle until I heard him stroking the bow on open strings correctly. You know? And so this, to me, is the key to all good guitar music, is the right hand. Now you put a plectrum in it, now you have a tool to use with the right hand to give energy and interest to your music. So one of the first things that I like to do, and very, have you heard of Brian Sutton? Brian Sutton's he's the latest guitar phenomenon that sort of is the next evolution from Tony Rice. Fascinating guitar player, plays tremendous speed and strings notes together very fluidly. And he does this is actually I learned from him. And it is simply taking your pick and getting that timed. He does this before every concert. He goes from E string to every string across the guitar. See what my foot's doing? Okay. I'm trying to focus on the timing of that pick so every note has the same value. Okay? Now, a good way to really develop that is a metronome. Okay? I know I hate them. I've always resisted using them. And I want to just play. I don't want to have to mess around with something like this. If I can read the numbers here, what I'm looking for. Is start at about 40. Can you hear that? Okay. Or just be downstream. Just downstream. And you see, you go ahead and try that a little bit. I want you to experience. I'm not going to play. I want you to hear it and feel it. Anticipate that next beat. All right, now on just your E string, do your first beat down with a downstroke, your second one with an upstroke on the same string. So it's going to be. Listen to the beat. Okay, let's stop just a minute. What was your experience of that?
I was getting ahead of myself really bad.
Oh, yeah.
Tendency to want to anticipate and get ahead of the beat. What?
That speed was tough.
Slow is tough. Slow is tough. But that is a great place to start, because if you can do that and get the timing at 40 beats, it's going to become easier and easier to do that at a faster rate. Because there's a tendency to do the very same thing at 80 beats that you were doing at 40. But you don't, it's not as evident to you when it's happening. And pretty soon, a song that starts out at 80 beats a minute has creeped up to about 88 beats a minute. And then the vocalist is starting to have the struggle to get words in. And so we're not even playing melody yet. We're just learning to control this and feel the beat. So there are all kinds of exercises you can do with that metronome. So you can set it at 40, you can set it at 50. Find a place at the start that you can do it and do it with control. And then go through your strings down, up, 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 down, up. Again, what are we doing? We're developing muscle memory. We're tuning our ear to hear those beats, okay? And eventually, you can begin to cross strings and pick up with your down-up strokes with the flat pick and keep those things in time. Again, I really think this is important. Years I played guitar, flat pick, and did not want to mess with the metronome. But we began to identify in a band. I was playing mostly rhythm. We added another guitar player, and I started playing more lead stuff. And became very aware of the fact that songs were picking up speed whenever I dropped out and wasn't playing rhythm. Everybody was tending to want to follow what the lead was doing. It should be the other way around. And so I felt like the only thing I could do to enhance the band was improve my timing, whether I was playing lead or whether I was playing rhythm. Okay.
I want to give you.
There's also some really good metronome apps out there, and they're free.
Yes.
I use one quite a bit, as a matter of fact. They not only tell you, do the different speeds, you see how many beats per minute.
Jeff has one he told us about, and I couldn't remember the name of it. We'll just take one of those and pass them around there. This is actually, this is some leftover things from a workshop I did at Barberville a couple years ago, so disregard the title. But what you'll find are just some comments about flat picking, and you'll find some exercises described here, doing just what I was showing you. Down-up exercises with the pick, going across the strings, whether you're holding a chord or not. After you practice open. Now, Brian Sutton swears that before every concert, he practices across the strings with his pick without worrying about chords. He is so focused on wanting to be sure his right hand is under control before he worries about this at all. Okay? So, if it's good enough for him, I've decided it's good enough for me. And I'll tell you who another person that is big on metronome is Ernie Evans.
Yes, he is.
I got this from Ernie too in a mandolin workshop, and he slowed the metronome down to, I think it was 20 beats a minute, and we played a song at speed to see where we were when that next click came in, and hardly anybody was on beat, by the time that thing clicked the
He's
second.
fantastic.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yeah, he is a metronome. On legs. So
also in the recording studio.
Yes. So in this handout, like I say on page 2, are some exercises that you can work with, and starting single string across chords, alternating strings, practice down up strokes back and forth between adjacent strings top to bottom. You can vary that exercise. Let's just hold a C chord. I assume everybody knows the C chord. You can down up on every string. Do that a few times. All right, now skip a string.
The upstroke on the second one.
Down, up, down, up, down, up. Go to the next two. Go to the next two. Next two. So on. You can make these up. The key to no matter how you do it, the key is, again, the timing and keeping each note having the same value. Then you get to this is basically getting into what we call cross-picking. Now, cross-picking then can go from just every other string to rolling on, take the top three strings down, up on the middle, the A string, down on the D, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, back and forth on those three strings. If you have trouble with it, slow it down. And ultimately, your goal is you get a roll with it. And again, you can play around with combinations of strings. You can play around with combinations of chords. Now, just let me give you a piece of a song to show you where this kind of stuff comes into play. We're just doing something like. You hear the roll in there? I can't do it slow. That's the same roll that I was just showing. But you don't learn it doing the song, you learn it practicing it on combinations of strings. Okay? Again, in the handout here, you'll find back in here are some exercises. Yeah, somewhere. Scale, that's not scale practice, what I want. Let's see. Let me make sure it's in here. Maybe it's not in here. I thought it was.
I gotta get that bug sprayed.
I'm sorry, I thought I had the cross-picking exercises attached to it, but I was thinking. Start in there. If you, a good resource is flatpickingguitarmagazine.com. You go online to that website and you can download exercises just like I'm showing you, a whole variety of them. They have them. They have an online magazine. They have one you can subscribe to as well, get a hard copy. But you'll find lots of different exercises you can do just like I'm describing. Okay, so you get the idea of what I'm saying here, because I don't want to spend a lot of time here just doing down-up practice on strings. Okay. Let's look at some other things in this handout that may be helpful to you. Pardon?
Do you have an extra copy in the handout?
Sure. You didn't get one.
Thank you.
That's my son. I can beat him up and take it away from him.
Oh, okay.
Pretty soon you won't be able to. No, not much longer.
So let's talk just a bit about the left hand and the fingerboard of the guitar.
Is this the left one?
Yeah, we're going to get to that in a minute. Do you understand what the frets are all about in terms of relating this to a piano keyboard at all? You know, you got black notes, and you got white notes, and the black notes are the sharps and the flats, and basically moving from one white key to the next white key is a whole step. Moving from a white key to a black key is a half step. Now there are two locations on the piano where you're moving from white key to white key with no black key in the middle. That's a half step, okay? So what I'm describing here, the basic scale pattern is whole step. The W stands for whole step, H is half step. Then you got whole step, half. That's a basic scale pattern. 2 frets on the guitar is a whole step. 1 fret on the guitar is a half step. Okay? So if I'm doing a C scale, let's say I'm in the key of C. This is a C note. There's C, D, E, F. There's a half step. 1, 2. That's 2. That's a whole step there. Whole step, half step, whole step, half step to the B, to the C, B to C, B to C. So going up and down the neck, that's a whole step. That's a half step. So the half step is like the black keys on your piano, in between 2 wires. Okay. Now, on the next page, I've given you the notes for a G scale. Now you say, well, yeah, I see the strings, I see the frets, but I don't know the notes. What are you talking about? That's why I'm giving you this page. It shows you the notes on the guitar scale. So, if you form a C chord, and you have your finger here, you're going to, here's your C note right here. So if you form a C chord, you see that C is on the 3rd fret, the 5th string. The next string, the next note after C is D, which is the next string open. That's a whole step. Then you got E, which is a whole step. Then you got a half step to the F. The next note is G, whole step. Then you got A, whole step to the B, or to the B string, and then a half step to the C. So these scale patterns here, the scale that I've given you here, the C scale and the G scale, on the next page there, you can mark those on this fretboard. Here's the G scale. Memorize the locations of those notes on your guitar by using the guitar next diagram that I've given you here with the notes on it. Okay. Now this is work. You guys will have, if you want to use this, you'll have to go home and you have to work at it. Okay.
Go buy some highlighters.
Pardon? Yes. Buy some highlighters. And memorize where those notes are. Okay. Because then the next thing is the next thing you're going to want to do is practice running those scales, run them forward and back. You know, you've got so on, you know. So because that's where your melody is going to be. And notice, here's your chord, here's your C chord. Look at a simple tune that a lot of people learn when they first start playing, Wildwood Flower. If you know that scale, you play a C chord, and most of your notes in that scale, in that song, in the melody of that song, are already there. Okay? You only saw me move 2 fingers, and I'm still holding this C note here, so I've got a reference. So that's the value of learning where those notes are and memorizing them. Now let's take that a step further. Somebody once told me I gave too much information, and I probably do. But if somebody had given me this information 45 years ago, and I had had it to work on, I would probably be even better than I am today. So there's what you call root shapes. Each chord has a note that is the root note of that chord. In the key of C, it's every C that appears in the chord. So you've got, let's see, there's a C note there. See where I'm at? Here's a C note here. Here's a C note here. So those are your root notes of that chord. Now, suppose I want to play down the neck someplace. I need to know where the C notes are. So if I look at this chart here marked 2 or handout 2, you'll see the 2 notes I just played are illustrated right here. Those are the 2 notes on the C chord. If I look at my diagram of the neck and I highlight it, as my friend here just suggested, I will see that I've highlighted 2 notes in exactly the position that is shown here. Okay? Now, if this is a C and I want another C down, I can go down to the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th fret on the 3rd string, and there's another C. Now, what does that mean? Well, okay, let's say I'm playing something in a C scale. Okay, here's my C. I want to go down the neck. I'm doing that because I know where the C notes are, and I'm just filling in stuff in between. Those are all C's. We go down a little further and we find 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 on the 8th fret. Whoa, there's 2 more C's. So learning where those root notes are down the neck gives you a reference point if you're playing a song. Okay, now let's say I want to go even further. If I go down 2 more frets, I find that on the 3rd string, at the, that would be the 11th fret, I think. So 10th fret, I've got another C, and then I skip 2 strings, and there's another C. Here I got C, and here I've got C, and here I've got C. So by forcing yourself to take the time to memorize where those C notes are, you now have a roadmap to follow. And by practicing the scale and training your ear to hear that scale, and you'll be able to start on any of those notes. You can run a scale there from that point, learning by working with the scale and recognizing what it sounds like. You can work your way around there. Now, there's a very important rule. This is not, those of you folks who've worked in the last workshop, it's not in the Folk Singer's Handbook. 15 minutes of perfect practice. That's what it takes to develop the muscle memory, to get a connection to the brain, to develop the neurons that when you think it, the muscles do it. That's 15 minutes of perfect practice. Now, how many hours of practice does it take to get 15 minutes of perfect practice? A lot. Okay? So that's accumulative. You might, in a 30-minute session, if you're practicing, you might do it perfect maybe one time, or might get half of it perfect one time. So, it's accumulative. But 15 minutes of doing it correctly will develop the muscle-brain connection that you need to do it without thinking of it. And it takes hours and hours to develop that. Columbus Moss.
It's a great.
They are awesome. Are you from Tallahassee? Yeah. Yeah, Chuck's a good friend of mine. Now, I've given you some other handouts here with patterns. These patterns are all based on the very same thing I'm showing you, the location of these root notes. These are patterns that you can practice getting up and down the neck. Now this is, we've jumped from just basic working with the pick on down-ups all the way to taking you down the neck. This is a roadmap for you to spend working with for the next however many years you want to spend working on it. I still practice the same thing myself. And there's also an article here I included by Dan Miller, who does articles for Flat Picking Guitar Magazine. All this is from, most of this is from Flat Picking Guitar Magazine. And you've got tablature as well as the notation there for these various scales, which you can practice. And some of the scales are not just up and down the scale, but it's some variations. And there's what we call a pentatonic scale. Now, anybody know what a pentatonic scale is? 5 notes, okay? It's only the 5 of the 7 notes. What do you leave out?
Second and 7.
4 and 7. So we're simplifying this now. You mean I don't have to know that whole scale to play a melody? No, you don't. You only have to know 5 notes of that scale. If you know those 5 notes and where they are on the neck, you can play around with those and you can get melodies in standard keys. Okay? Now, I'm a believer in a capo. Frank's actually wilting a little bit on that, isn't he?
He is.
Yeah.
I've seen him. He actually had a bunch.
Yeah.
Last time I saw him.
Well, I bet.
At Beluga Hatchet, he
Yeah.
actually used one.
Well, I'm sure it wasn't
Strike
his.
that from the video. Whoever's
Yes,
doing
yes.
this. Yeah, we don't want that to get out.
No. The last workshop, Frank Thomas is notorious for taking people's capos. You know, he said they didn't need it, and he would collect. He has a jar in his house full of people's capos. You know. But if I know that this is a C, and this is a C, what happens if I put a capo on it at the 2nd fret? What have I done?
Picked it up
I've moved a whole step, haven't I? Everything's moved a whole step. So now this C becomes what? A D. So now I have a D. I play the same thing I practiced in C, but I now am playing in the key of D. Okay? So if I go up 2 more frets, 2 more whole steps, C, D,
D.
E. Okay, now I'm in E. Well, if I move back a half step,
D sharp.
now I've gotten into some sharps and flats, depending on which way I'm going. Okay, this could be G sharp, or it could be E flat, right? If I'm playing in a C finger.
And D sharp.
Okay, have I lost anybody? What I'm simply trying to do is tie what I've said about the scale, the whole steps, whole step, half step, whole step, so on, to the fingerboard and paint that picture. So this particular page gives you pentatonic scales to practice, where you're only using 5 notes of the scale. Practice the whole scale, just so you know it's there. Then go back and become aware of what you've dropped out and use the 5 notes here. And this is not using a capo. This is showing you the pentatonic scale all down here, or on the neck of the guitar, without a capo. The simple thing to do is use a capo. And a lot of flat pickers will use the capo because they get more open strings and it sounds better than what they're doing. Then there's one other type of scale I want to mention. Let's see what time it is here. Okay. And that is a folded scale. So let's go back to our basic scale. That's a basic C scale. Okay. Now, is that a pentatonic scale? How many notes did I play? 1, pentatonic scale, I'm 7 and 8. Yeah. So for pentatonic scale, I'm going to leave out 4. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 8. I left out 4 and 7. So that would be the pentatonic scale. You see what I'm doing? I can't leave the blue note out. That half step, yeah, you can stick out in the blue scale. You got the blue scale, okay? So it's almost impossible to leave that note out. It doesn't sound right. Okay, there's the pentatonic. Now, if we want to fold that scale, you hear the term folding the scale. All that means is I'm going forward, I'm taking a couple steps forward and a step back. There's where the down up with your pick begins to come into play. Okay. So, and you can make these up. I did not learn those from a book. I just started practicing folding the scale different directions. And that's where, you know, I do not learn from tablature, and I don't learn from notes, and I just have to figure it out. Whiskey Before Breakfast, I probably spent weeks developing very slow. And that's, to me, that's the path to if you're going to be a creative flatfooter, is learning the neck, learning to understand where you're going when you go from fret to fret, learning those root positions so you have a reference point to know that if I'm there, where do I go from here? So you have a reference point. I know you use those, Frank.
Oh, yeah.
So, okay, you say, good grief, this guy's giving me all this stuff to work on, and I don't have much time. You know, I don't have time to go to just live doing this. I know that. So here's a sheet, 5 ways to improve your practice. Okay? You start identifying, what do I need to practice? What's my problem areas? Is it timing? Is it controlling the pick? Is it learning scales? This is mark number 4, next to the last page there, I think. And once you've identified something you want to work on, break it down into its smallest piece. I have trouble holding the pick. I have trouble getting the pick back and forth on the strings. Okay, so what would be the smallest piece? Start there. Well, that's not too bad. I can do that. Now I'm going to add another string. So you build your practice from step to step. Set clear goals for your practice. Okay, how do we do that? Well, on the last page I'm giving you is a little organizer. Okay, and here, in the first column, I've got right hand techniques. That's what we started out talking about, the down ups and working the pick back and forth from string to string. The next column, scales and licks. Okay, I've given you scales to practice there, the full scale, the pentatonic scale, and folding the scales. You can make a note there of what you're going to work on. Then we've got chords and progressions. We haven't even talked about chords and progressions, but there again, you can spend some making. You know, the key to whether you're a guitar player or not is if you can play F, right?
Or B minor.
Or B minor, yeah. If you play B minor or F, you're probably going to make it. But I know a girl that she won't play anything that she has to play an F position.
B minor was my nemesis for a long time.
She asked me if she'd come to the house and would I help her. I said, sure, I'll help you, but you're going to play F. She hasn't come yet. And I says, you know, if you're not willing to come and let me work with you to play F, but, you know, don't come. She said,
So this would be a phobia?
it could be. She's got an F phobia. And she tells me she's working on it, you know. She says, I'll come one of these days, but she wants me to play the F chord perfect before she gets there. Well, guess what? I guess I'm accomplishing my goal because she's practicing the F. New songs you want to work on, you know. Let me ask you, how many of you practice, pick up your guitar and you play and you sit down and you play everything you know, or your favorite song, every time you pick it up? Well, do that. But also, put that over here in your repertoire column, okay? So if I've got, let's say I have, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 columns here. If I want to have a very efficient practice, what's a typical practice for somebody? 30 minutes, 20 minutes, hour? 20 minutes? Let's say you got 20 minutes. Take 20 minutes, divide by 5, you have 4 minutes. Spend 4 minutes on right-hand technique, 4 minutes on running a scale that you want to learn, 4 minutes on practicing a new chord, practice that phobia chord. Maybe you got a new song you want to work on, so you got to work on the first verse of a new song, maybe, and then finish it up by playing something you already know. Okay? And so you start with a plan. You've got it organized, and I thank Butch Baldessari for this. Butch Baldessari was a wonderful sideband and mandolin player in Nashville. Passed away a couple of years ago, and he's the one that gave me this, and it works great. If you got an hour, then you can add more time, you know, okay?
We're going to have to go.
We're going to have to go. What time is it?
We are. It's 3:45.
3:45? Okay. Here are some other scales. Just so you know, I'm not going to leave you in the dark. Here are some G pentatonic scales and C pentatonic scales and so on you can practice. Here are some folded exercise scales.
So that's a common term, folded?
Yep.
It's not just a Jim Robertson?
No, I didn't make that
a
up.
Jimism?
No, that's not a Jimism. I have a few of those, but that's not one of them.
Frank, did you get one? Oh, the other one?
Oh, yeah,
The
sorry.
one from Mr. Ivy. And that one too. Mr. Ivy? Did you hand Frank one of those?
These are all the G's, right? This
Yeah.
is G.
That's the G, this is the folded.
Is it over there?
Jerry, I don't think you got the first handout, did you? Did you get the first handout?
That's that.
Grab two, Frank.
Yeah.
Okay, so have I overwhelmed you?
Yeah, but you're giving us plenty to work on.
Okay.
Especially us beginners.
Frank, give me that last one.
Well,
Yeah, I got a copy.
that's what I wanted to do, just try to give you a path to follow.
Or maybe not.
And
Okay.
I had a fella do this for me many years ago. He wrote on 2 sheets of paper, front and back, everything I needed to be working on. And to this day, I still pull those out, and there's things there for me to work on. Because he boiled it down to what was important. And, yeah.
Is there a 2?
Pardon?
1 and 3, is there a 2?
There's a 2 on the same page. No, behind.
Oh,
No, yeah, there you go. Yeah. So, questions? Yeah. Yes.
Sorry. Is there a reason that you just have the G and the C scale back here, or I mean, as opposed to an F or anything?
Yes. The reason was to keep it simple.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
Right.
And I figure when you get comfortable with those, if you want to look. Now the other thing is there's 2 reasons actually. One, to keep it simple, and the second is that most flat pickers don't often go to those other scales. They simply capo. and they work, so they'll work their way up to in capo, so they can be playing a C or a G scale
Okay.
and have an F scale actually because of the way they reposition the capo. But if you want to look up the F scale, I'm sure you can find it online.
Oh, yeah,
And
absolutely.
if you understand this, you'll understand.
Right, but I figured that was
Yeah.
that was just the best to start with.
Yeah, and it is also the most commonly used chord positions for bluegrass type flat-pick.
Okay.
I don't have a question, I have a comment.
Okay?
How do you eat an elephant?
One bite at a
One
time.
bite,
Yep, that's right.
This is the same thing.
And don't discount this guy,
Oh, no.
particularly for that very basic down, up practice, okay? Any other questions? Okay? You bet. Okay. Enjoy the festival.
Will you have another workshop while you're here this weekend?
No,
No.
but next year I'll come back, and I expect you all to come back and show me what you learned. Okay?
There you go.
Believe it or not, I do this at Barberville, and I've actually had that happen. I've got a couple of people I'm just tickled to death because they come back. They have actually used this stuff. You know?
That's testimony right there for you.
Yeah, yeah. So, and I'm sorry I didn't teach you a song, but that's your responsibility.
Yeah, I have B metronome, and it works. I'm very happy with
Is
it.
that the app?
Yeah, well, it's one of the
Yeah.
There's a bunch of them, but
I've even-
I tried a couple of them.
I just
yeah.
bought this new tuner. It's got a metronome in it.
Oh, cool. Oh,
Yeah.
cool. And
Yeah.
the tuner is so-
I haven't figured out how to use it yet.
You put out a CD or DVD?
Pardon? Instructional?
Do you have a DVD or a CD? You
No, I don't. I have the band has a CD, but I don't have an instructional CD.
don't have any
No.
video training?
No, there's lots of stuff on YouTube though. There's a guy, Tim May, does great. Look for ActiveMelody.com. ActiveMelody.com.
ActiveMelody.com.
Active, A-C-T-I-V-E, melody.com. He has a whole series of free lessons. You can subscribe and get a free lesson every week.
Oh.
Then if you want to pay for a subscription, there's 2 other levels, and he expands on each one. But his stuff is very well done. Very
I've
well
had
done.
difficulty with upper scale chords.
Yeah, that's one of the best I've seen. I've looked at the guy's got his head on his shoulders, and he's a pretty young guy, but he starts very simple and he leads you along, and yeah, does a good job.
Active Melody.
Yep.
You gotta hold them all together. Don't let that banjo run away.
Hey, Jerry.
Hey, Jim.
How you doing? Oh, Ron, you didn't have far to come this time, did you?
Yeah, I think one blew out.
Pretty good.